Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony, which today commemorates the 105th anniversary of the surrender of German forces in New Guinea during the First World War. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Owen Gardner. At the outbreak of the First World War, the German East Asia Squadron was seen as posing a potential threat to Allied merchant shipping in the region. New Guinea was part of the Imperial German Pacific Protectorates, which included German Solomon Islands, the Caroline Islands, Palau, some of the Mariana Islands, the Marshall Islands, and Nauru. Britain requested that Australia seize German wireless stations in German New Guinea and establish a military administration occupying the territory under the British flag. The Australian Naval and Military Expedition Force was hurriedly formed in early August and consisted of an infantry battalion of 1,000 men and 500 naval reservists and ex-sailors. On the 11th of September, a small party attempted to capture an inland wireless station at Bidabaka. In the skirmishes that followed, 6 Australians were killed or died as a result of their wounds. They would be the first of the Australian forces to die in the First World War. By the 17th of September, terms had been reached and all military resistance ended. With German New Guinea under Australian control, the German threat in the region had ceased and Australian military occupation began. German capitulation was marked with a ceremony on Monday the 21st of September, 105 years ago today. Along with the formal surrender of German Southwest Pacific territories, German troops were disarmed. Those who took the oath of neutrality were allowed to return to their plantations or their occupations. Germans of the regular army were eventually sent to Australia, where they were re-interned for the duration of the war. This afternoon, we remember the surrender of German New Guinea, and we remember all those who served. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools: Kingsway Christian College, Darch, Western Australia, and St Mary's Anglican Girls' School. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Captain Guy Owen Manning. Guy Manning was born in the Sydney suburb of Hunters Hill on the 4th of November 1881, the son of Emily and Charles Manning. From a well-known family in the legal profession and the son of a judge, Manning was educated at the prestigious King's School. He arrived in Port Moresby in February 1901 to work as Assistant Private Secretary to Administrator Lahunty of British New Guinea, and the following year became Assistant Resident Magistrate. In 1904, he was Private Secretary to Acting Administrator Barton. In 1907, he resigned from the administration to work as a land clearance contractor at Pali near Marshall Lagoon for the Laka River Rubber Estates. In 1910, he was manager of the estate until early 1912, when he left Papua and married Linda Cowper in Sydney. On the outbreak of the First World War, Manning applied for a commission, and in August 1914 he was appointed Second Lieutenant in E Company of the Australian Naval and Military Expeditionary Force. The AN and MEF was formed in response to a request from the British government to seize German wireless stations in German New Guinea and establish a military administration occupying the territory under the British flag. With a force consisting of an infantry battalion of 1,000 men and 500 naval reservists and ex-sailors, the AN and MEF left Sydney on the 19th of August aboard HMAS Berrima. The AN and MEF moved to Port Moresby, where it met a Queensland contingent and then sailed for German New Guinea. On the 11th of September 1914, 1,500 men and almost the entire Australian fleet arrived off Rabaul in German New Guinea. Two parties of 25 naval reservists went ashore at the settlements of Herbert Show and Cabacale. The party that landed at Cabacale was tasked with capturing the wireless station at Bitapaka, about 7 kilometres inland. This group encountered significant resistance as it progressed towards the wireless station. 6 Australians had been killed and 4 wounded in the fighting for the Bitapaka wireless station. But by the 17th of September, terms had been reached and all military resistance ended. With German New Guinea now under Australian control, the German threat in the region had ceased and Australian military occupation began. Manning was promoted to captain on the 1st of January 1915, having been appointed the officer in charge of native affairs of German New Guinea in early December 1914. Almost nobody in the force had experience in colonial administration, and his experience in Papua soon proved valuable. He was made district officer for New Ireland in February 1915, and towards the end of the month reported that a public execution of a man for murdering a Malay at Malum had a good effect on the unruly natives. Travelling by foot, horse, trap and boat, Captain Manning crossed the island twice, visiting all plantations and principal villages, and studied German reports about the declining population in New Ireland, attributed mainly to the recruitment and removal of men and young women from the villages. He recommended that the German ban on recruiting women be continued, and by October, all recruiting for work outside the district was banned without the special written approval of the administrator. On the 18th of June 1915, Manning had been out along the East Coast Road with Private Good, a mechanic. When Manning failed to arrive, Private Good turned back to find the scene of an accident, and Manning being attended to by local inhabitants from the nearby mission. As Manning's family was living with him, Linda Manning hitched up the station buggy and collected an AN and MEF medical orderly and drove to the accident scene. But Manning's injuries were too serious, and he died shortly after they arrived. He was buried at Pakale the following day. Guy Manning's brother, Major Charles Eddie Manning, was Assistant Judge Advocate General in New Guinea after the military occupation. He left to fight on the Western Front, where he was later killed on the 7th of August 1916. Guy Manning's name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A group portrait taken in the Officers' Mess of the Australian Navy and Expeditionary Force is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. Guy Manning can be seen in this photo in the back row, 4th from the left. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Captain Guy Owen Manning, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea. No flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a fast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, had thoughts in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.